Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the Sports Exchange. My name is Scott Morganroth, along with my co-host, Jake Rongholt. Jake, glad to have you back.
It's great to be back here, Scott, and hopefully you got your Christmas shopping done.
Working on it, being out of state, trying to get a lot of our gifts up in the greater Wisconsin area, Racine area. It's pretty neat being up here with family. So had a little bit of an early Christmas celebration last Saturday at my brother and sister-in-law's house. Plus, they have a newborn 18-month-old child, so it's pretty neat stuff. So, but anyway,
that's fantastic. And how's the weather up there?
Actually, I enjoy it. I don't care about the cold weather up here. Just keep the snow away. I don't care. And the ice, we're okay. A little cold weather don't hurt nobody up here, especially when I can laugh at all those people in Florida that talk about 40 to 50 degrees be cold. Why don't you get into single digits or low double digits? Then come back to me with your rant or complaint of the day. Not buying it.
The thing is, Scott, is that if it was December right now, I would want to be in the snow. At this point, like yesterday, we had this big rainstorm come in, and I was just miserable sitting here in my car going, you got to be kidding me. I would just love for some snow right now just to see how these Floridians react. So
I'm with you. Oh, I love laughing at Floridians, knowing that my other half is from Wisconsin and I'm from the Detroit area, so that's good stuff. So, but
all right, I like it.
Meanwhile, a guy that was celebrating on Monday night was a guy by the name of Drew Brees, making history.
Yeah, it was like a sports movie. It really was. I mean, I feel like we're watching this kind of franchise in the making. I'm going to call it the Brees franchise because he has broken every record that you could think of. He broke Peyton Manning's career touchdown record on Monday Night Football. That was at 539. He's now at 541 on the season. Go back to 2018. He broke Peyton's passing yards record with 71,940 yards in Week 5 against the Redskins. And this is crazy to me. He's 40 going on 41 years old. He has 29 for 30, 307 yards, and 4 touchdowns against the Colts. Colts have a very good defense, and they looked like the Jacksonville Jaguars out there. It was crazy just how intelligent of a relationship and chemistry that head coach Sean Payton and Drew Brees had together. And that really works. And then you got Michael Thomas, my favorite receiver in the NFL, most underrated, don't talk about receiver, that also had his own record broken. He had 126 receptions, including that touchdown pass in the second quarter. So it was a record-breaking night overall for the New Orleans Saints going forward. And if you're a Saints fan, you got to be feeling confident that you're back in the elite right now after that tough loss to San Francisco.
Very dangerous team. And isn't it amazing, Jake, that Drew Brees lost out to Phillip Rivers with the Chargers? My goodness.
Scott, it's crazy to me. It feels like, seriously, in that middle half of a sports movie when, he's in a general manager's office or a coach tells him he's no good and, your shoulders separated. It's all over. You're going to have to go work at a Hy-V or something or go be a big businessman. I was talking about Kurt Warner's career, but you see where I'm going from here. But that's what it feels like. I mean, he's been 20 years in the NFL, and I think the best decision he ever made was going to New Orleans. And since then, he has a Super Bowl ring. He's broken all these records. He's been an MVP. This is just a wonderful story, and I just love the way how humble that Drew Brees continues to be, especially when he was in the press conference during the postgame. But I got to mention this thing real quick here. The Colts. Okay, Scott, this was crazy to me. Brees was fantastic, but he ramshot all over Frank Reich's Colts. Jacoby Brissett is not the future of the Indianapolis Colts going forward because when I watch him, he holds the ball too long. He's a good short yard passer, but when it comes to the deep ball, it's inaccurate. And it just never feels like this team is actually in it. And we knew that there was going to be a drop-off with Andrew Luck. I didn't expect this, though, but I could see the Colts going to get a quarterback in free agency in March.
Well, I mean, think about it. They've had a full year now to evaluate Jacoby Brissett. They didn't see the Luck retirement coming. But you pretty much know that Frank Reich can make an average quarterback good. We saw what happened with Nick Foles. I want to point out another thing too about Drew Brees. Number one, here's a guy that could have gone to the Miami Dolphins and Nick Saban, but they were worried about his shoulder. Well, when you think about how that decision impacted Nick Saban's desire to go back to college because he couldn't find a unbelievable quarterback. And by the way, just so you know, Drew Brees was not a first-round pick. I believe he's like a I believe it's like a second or third round pick. My statistician will find out in a moment about what round he was. But to think about the fact that Nick Saban could have had him in Miami, but then he lands in New Orleans, and boy, you're right, Jake. It definitely went ahead and changed the entire dynamics of a lot of different franchises. The Chargers and Phillip Rivers, not to say that he was a bad pick. Drew Brees out of Purdue, and Purdue's had a history of a lot of good quarterbacks. I know Gary Danielson and Bob Greasy come to mind when you talk about ex-Boilermakers.
Well, there you go.
So, I mean, there's a Super Bowl or two here and there. And when you look at Brees coming from Purdue, everybody talks about quarterback schools, but don't sleep on the Purdue Boilermakers.
No, because, when you come out of the second round, 32nd overall, you're going to have a chip on your shoulder. For crying out loud, Aaron Rodgers still has a chip on his shoulder and being picked number 24. And the thing you talk about with Drew Brees and Purdue is it's true. Because when Brees went back, he was looking at not one, not two, but three quarterbacks in the making for Purdue. It's starting to look like a quarterback school. They had this guy named Jack Plummer that really showed off some deep ball consistency, had some confidence. And you mentioned about Purdue, too. That was an all-out freshman team this year, and they're going to be a year older. They're going to have Jack Plummer coming back, and it's going to be interesting to see what Purdue football can do after Brees retires and goes back and looks and sees, wow, maybe we started something here. You also forgot about another quarterback that was good at Purdue, Kyle Orton.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think Kyle Orton, though, gets a lot of publicity because he didn't have a stellar career. But when you think about him, played with the Bears, a very dependable backup quarterback. So, yeah, but Kyle Orton is a guy that had a really solid career. He made a lot out of limited abilities. But, yeah, when you talk about the second pick, 32nd overall, means he was obviously regarded one of the top 32 players in that particular draft. So, and, everybody talks about we got to find our franchise quarterback in the first round. Not the case. You can find him in round 2 or 3, all the way down to the 7th round. And we've talked about this before, and we'll say it again. Okay, you can find a good quarterback. Your scouting staff better be pretty good, and you can get lucky enough where these guys fall. They don't have to be a top 15 pick. Case in point, Lamar Jackson, as much as I hate Dan Marino, he slid to the Miami Dolphins many years ago. And there's other quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers wasn't a bad pick for the Packers, sliding all the way down in the first round. And he ends up in a far better situation where he's able to back up Brett Favre. So, you get the drill. Drew Brees is an excellent quarterback, a surefire first-year Hall of Famer when his career does come to an end. And you know what? They're a team that don't sleep on them either. I was talking to my wife.
And it's another thing, too, is that it kind of feels like Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees kind of have a lot of similarities. And that was the defense utility that was happening year after year. It doesn't matter how many numbers Rodgers put up or Brees put up. Their defenses always failed them at the wrong times. And that's been a problem also for the Saints this year. I always feel like, Scott, it's the defense that's going to keep the Saints from getting back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2009. And with that, you see Marcus Davenport out for the year. Manti Te'o is still dealing with an injury. He played. A.J. Klein came back. When you watch those corners, though, you still got Marshawn Lattimore that's still kind of a struggle off that injury. Eli Apple doesn't know how to cover up a deep ball or anything like that. So it's good to see the Saints back in that conversation. But Drew Brees can only do so much for this team. I just feel like the defense is going to be the problem and keep them from getting back to the Super Bowl again.
Well, yeah, and that's why I never, my wife Candy and I were talking about potential teams that could reach the Super Bowl. As much as I would think the Saints could, I felt the reason I didn't put them in that category is for what you just said, defense. But if I had to make preliminary picks about where I think who could be in the Super Bowl. Seattle, you don't rule them out. San Francisco could be pretty good because of a solid defense. And don't sleep on the Packers either, especially if they get home field advantage and those games are at Lambeau Field. So, since we're on the playoff theme, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs, second time in 3 years. They've done a really, really super job up there. To think that this was a team that Donald Trump put in a bid for $1 billion, only to see Terry and Kim Pagula walk in at $1.4 billion, and the Pagulas actually own the Buffalo Sabres, who are also doing well, and now the Bills. So I'm happy for the people in Western New York.
The Pagulas had quite a journey trying to rebuild this franchise. If you saw it about 10 years ago, it was a colossal disaster. And, because Ralph Wilson passed on, their kids weren't doing the right thing. It wasn't a very good deal at that point, and so they had to bring in Pakula, and he's done a good job for the Buffalo Sabres and also the Buffalo Bills. The one thing that you got to give a lot of credit to is them hiring general manager Brandon Beane from the Carolina Panthers, because this was a bullseye for them. They took an assistant general manager from Carolina and rebuilt him. He was able to bring in talent like John Brown, Robert Foster, was able to keep Frank Gore going another year, drafted Devin Singletary, who has been a blessing in disguise for them, a solid offensive line, and this defense. Scott, I love this defense to death for Buffalo because they are second in points allowed, nearly only 16 points per game. They have 42 sacks in the year, the seventh in the NFL. They are coming off a performance where they picked off, Delvin Duck Hodges for 4 interceptions. They won a 17-10 game over a very good, resilient Steelers defense. And, it's their first 10-win season since 1999. And the thing that really works for them is they have leadership on this team. They got Lorenzo Alexander and Jerry Hughes leading the pack. They brought in Trent Murphy from Washington. Tre'Davious White has gotten a year better. And, Micah Hyde has been a blessing in disguise as the captain of the secondary. That's the thing, Scott. A lot of people are going to continue disrespecting this team, but this defense and Josh Allen, if he can continue to improve, they're going to be a tough out against anybody that faces them in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. No, I think the word sleeper to me would best describe the Buffalo Bills. And, again, the Wilsons did a pretty good job. Hey, got the team to 4 Super Bowls, didn't win one.
Oh, yeah.
But the reality of the situation is Mr. Wilson, and I actually had a chance to meet Mr. Wilson during the Super Bowl with the.
What was that like?
Great guy, and I met Marv Levy as well. And when I talked about Marv Levy about the wing T offense, he was impressed that I knew anything about the wing T offense. And he said, "You mean to tell me somebody actually knows about that?" "Oh, I study football all day long, Mr. Levy." And that's how I was really, going ahead and relating to it. Here's a little irony about the Indianapolis matchup against New Orleans. I actually saw that Super Bowl in Miami a few years back when.
No.
Oh, yeah, I was at that game. So, there are perks in this business, Jake, as you'll find out. So, but, again, I agree with you. New Orleans defense, to me, would be the Achilles heel. But Lambeau Field, I think if all roads lead to Lambeau Field, all these other teams are in trouble. And let's not kid yourself. The Packers play the Lions on my birthday on the 29th. And the way the Lions season has turned out, pencil in a W for Green Bay. I'm an objective. As much as I like to see the Lions do well, there's perception and there's reality. And Lambeau Field and the frozen tundra, to me, are not an inviting combination for opponents to come in January.
No, they showed that, and, I'm glad you brought up the Packers here for a moment. We'll get back to the Bills in just a moment here on the Sports Exchange podcast, is that the Green Bay Packers are winning ugly. And, I've been talking to a friend of mine who works for the Dairyland Express, a good friend of mine. We talk every Sunday during football because I get kind of passionate during games. And he kind of talks me off the ledge, and I kind of just sit there quietly. So after I talked to him a little bit, 5 minutes left in the game, I didn't say a peep. I just watched silence just to see what was going to happen.